Hi everyone, welcome to the GCS Connect Leaders Series. Great to have you here. We've got Aris Manshor from RELX, one of the engineering managers down there. Really great conversation. We talk about data within the energy industry, working as a leader and dealing with good times and bad times, and also how that kind of communication and working with a really strong integrated team can help you develop great products for your customers. I think you'll really enjoy this one. It's Aris Manshor. Thank you. Fantastic. Welcome, guys, to another episode of the GCS Connect Leaders Series. We have Aris Manshor with us today from RELX. He's one of the engineering manager down there, 22 years experience. We've been speaking over the last few weeks with regards to his role, and I felt it was great to kind of get someone with his level of experience into the business, into the podcast, and really great to speak to you. Hi, Aris. How are you?
Well, thank you, David.
Fantastic. Well, we were just talking just then, if you kind of time it, myself and Aris are big England fans. So we've just been talking. This is the day after England have won the semi-final, which should go live on the day after maybe we've won the final. So yeah, hopefully the journey continues. But I think both of us were very excited, weren't we, Aris, about the football result last night?
Yes, absolutely. New pastures, new grounds, and again, hopefully, new luck. And actually, we actually go all the way, and it's coming.
Yeah, that's right. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. By the time this goes live, we'll obviously know whether it is coming home or not. But I think obviously one of the, the subject of this the podcast is very much around leadership. And I think before we kind of go into yourself and your journey, I think there's some really, I don't know if you agree, there's some really good leadership being shown in the England team, isn't it? By Southgate, by some of the players. I think it's for me, it's quite a good place to kind of learn from, isn't it? I don't know if you've seen that yourself.
Yes, I certainly seen it. So I think in all organizations, even in the England team, for example, you do need leadership within the team, not one, but probably a few. To guide the players, obviously, it's a tense moment during a game. There's a lot riding on it, a lot at stake. So sometimes you need one or two leaders to show up and guide everyone else through a very difficult period or through a very challenging period. And this sort of situations actually present itself and unexpected sometimes. But of course, there are moments where a person or several people need to stand up and be counted. It's effectively just being able to get through a difficult moment or challenging moment and surpass it.
Yeah, and I was thinking, taking that into the kind of the IT context. People talk a lot about footballers being prima donnas, and you've got to kind of make them play for the shirt. And part of that is obviously the fact that there aren't enough really good footballers, and obviously they get paid kind of a lot of money. And you could almost take that into the context in some ways of technology. And if you're working with computer programmers, those guys being really highly in demand, and how to kind of build that sort of value in the team as a leader. And I was kind of going to ask you, I guess that's something that you work within your team, because you've got a lot of kind of highly in demand people that you work with. I mean, how do you think is the best way to be a leader when working with people that are really highly sought after?
Right, I do like your analogy. So and I do actually do the same analogy for football with the development team I manage in the past and present as well. So effectively, we are a unit. We strive for one goal, to deliver software. Software can't be developed by a single person. It's developed and delivered by a team of people.
You've
got to play their role. And for me, everyone needs to fulfill their role as best as they can in order to get the right results. So, for example, if you're the unglamorous right back, as opposed to the very glamorous centre forward, say Harry Kane or the prince of a developer, so to speak, because scores the goals and gets the result. However, if that right back, that person could be a QA, could be a junior developer, does not fulfill their role, the delivery and the result will not be the same. So everyone, and I stress everyone is accountable to everyone else in terms of being able to deliver, being able to depend on each other, be able to support each other. And of course, no one's good at what they do. There's always something that, they're lacking, slightly like experience, like knowledge, or just being able to communicate. So everyone's got their own strength. And I think as a leader is recognizing each person's strength and combining as a unit, as a team, to be able to deliver, effectively, work as a team. I always stress this as a manager. If you're delivering a piece of software, and again, it's always critical, time sensitive, under constraints, you always get a situation where people get anxious. Obviously you get bottlenecks, you got obstacles, and again, those obstacles can only be solved if we work together. So typically, we do get junior developers or junior technical people, no different from football. And sometimes we try to circumvent it, or try to find a solution. What's best? Do we judge the individual in terms of his ability or lacking in any abilities? No, we don't. What we do is we support the person. We try to find the person's strength and of course their weaknesses, and try to find ways to solve their weaknesses. It may be a lack of knowledge, a lack of experience, or whatnot. So I think for me, working as a unit, and I always say, no different from football again, teams only as strong as the weakest part or the weakest person. So we try to strive what we can.
That's really good, and to kind of take that into context of the work that you do at RELX. Do you want to just take us a little bit through the kind of type of work that you work on, and the type of kind of areas that you supply into and develop software for?
So we effectively build a platform where our customers, their business customers, can access business information. So the area where a business unit I manage and look after is the energy division. So we do provide prices, commodity prices, commodity information, commodity news relating to energy and petrochemicals. Again, it's a very global business, very high volume, but however, it's providing that information with the likes of other competitors. So we got the likes of Bloomberg, we got the likes of Argus, IHS Markets. So it's a very competitive area, but we need to provide information to our customers to decide and make the right decision. So I think very key for us is the customer experience and getting the right data for the customer.
Yeah, and is that a kind of continuous development process? Is it you're constantly looking to kind of make tweaks and advances on a live system, or do you go through a kind of more kind of preordained versions upon versions?
So we tend to go versions based on platform, but again, the roadmap is tends to be evolving from time to time. So sometimes we build a functionality, a feature, which doesn't dependent on the previous software, but it's completely new feature. So, but in terms of development, we do have a steady focus release where the versions are in succession, and they are actually, there's a sequence where we know we delivered something new and we can track the changes accordingly. So what we've done a year ago or 2 years ago, we can track it in terms of what's gone in since and what's changed.
Yeah, and yourself as the leader within that business, what are the most the most significant challenges that you face when you're kind of within this role, and what do you need to kind of overcome on a daily or on a regular basis?
I think there's two sides. So obviously, I'm serving the needs of the team. So sometimes the team says, I can't do this work because I haven't got the knowledge, or the configuration of the environments where I'm developing it on has got issues. I can't solve that problem. And of course, there's the other side of things where, I'm accountable to some of the stakeholders. So the product owners, product managers, the business people, the business groups, and again, they're customer facing. I'm not. Yeah. And they're accountable to, to deliver something for the customer. They've committed a commitment. And for me, I'm delivering software with the team, and I've given a commitment to the business stakeholders. And for me, the challenge is sometimes, we have to be realistic. Like all technical teams, we always encounter problems. We always shortfalls. We always bottlenecks. It's being open and honest about it and discuss it openly, not once, but several times. And as an engineer myself, I try to solutionize it, find a solution, try to fix it, and of course, trying to fix it or find a workaround if I can as well, in the right time frame and a realistic time frame. Never overpromise, also never underpromise. But so when I go back to the stakeholders, they effectively get the right timelines in terms of if there's a problem, when can it be fixed? If there's a problem bottleneck, when is it going to be a delivery dateline? So effectively, they've committed something to the customer, and I likewise have to follow the commitment. So if there's any sudden unexpected problems that may delay the deadline, I need to be very clear about what they are, how we're fixing it, how we're going about it, what action we're taking, and what is the likely outcome. I think the key bit is meeting expectations, and of course, if the expectations need to be adjusted, I need to be quite open and honest about what the risks are and how we're tackling it, and what is the likely outcome in terms of fixing it.
And what I found quite kind of interesting there is you talked about kind of over-promising and under-promising as well. Is that something you've learned in your career for more junior leaders or more junior project managers? Did you have a moment in your career where I shouldn't do that again? And what do you kind of really mean by under-promising? It was quite interesting.
So quite often, everyone is very optimistic. Everyone says, yes, we can do this. Not just from the product owners, from the business stakeholders, it's also from the developers. So from them, they get a requirement from the business, right? Build the software, do it this way. You must do this, must do that. You must have this functionality. In the most basic introduction to it, it looks quite simple. However, as like everything else, as you go into the detail, and the devil's always in the detail, you find issues, kinks, shortfalls, unexpected technical problems, which is quite normal. And I think with experience, you've had multiple problems in the past. I've experienced so many problems, technical problems, which I had to overcome, fix, or find a solution, or find workarounds. And I think sometimes to do something, it takes a bit longer. It may be anything from half the time longer or 30% longer. It does really depend. So I think it's a case of when the team is estimating the work, they must caveat for a little bit of unexpected issues, lags, lack of knowledge, or finding new problems. So I think being too optimistic can actually cause a massive problem, because you've committed to a date, and you said you're very confident you committed to a date to deliver software. When actually, when you start undertaking the work and you find one or two issues as is expected in anything technical, and you don't account for that, and of course your time you actually will take to actually deliver the software will overrun. So I think it's just being plain and honest about your abilities, our abilities as a team, and also anything unexpected to be accounted for as well. So typically, we do account for anything from 10 to 30% of the estimates for unaccounted or unexpected problems or knowledge, or what it can be many things. So again, that covers off any potential bottlenecks, any potential issues that may crop up, and also gives a nice cushion margin for the team to be able to deliver under duress.
Yeah, that's right. And it makes a lot of sense, because it like you said, it takes the pressure off as well, doesn't it? We've thought about this. We have a reasonable timescales, and if we can over deliver, happy days. That's a good thing, right? But
yes,
I definitely think it's a great way to go forward. And obviously you work within the kind of the data sector, as it were, and there's a lot of the kind of we've had a lot of the podcasts. It's kind of data is the new gold, and this is such a great way of it's such an important part of the economy now. what when you think about your business, and you've worked in this market for some time, what do you think should be the key focuses for people working within that kind of data sector now? Obviously there's so much within GDPR and security, etc., etc. What are the things that worry you or excite you about working within data?
I think you're right, David. Data is the new gold or the new oil. And again, the data is actually priceless depending on who has that data and able to utilize it in the correct way. So for me, data is very important, typically to our customers, as the data actually gives them the ability to be ahead of the competitors, or to have the right information, data to make the right decisions, to purchase, to sell, to hold a position, whatnot. And of course, the data patterns and the behaviors of analysis that they get will also make a massive impact on their decision making, on what to buy, what to sell, what to hold, what's expected typically. So for me, one of the key things is, like everything else, the data cannot be compromised. So as you say, the data is the new gold. It is priceless to some customers, and our customers clearly have certain formulas where they take the data, and with the formulas they have a matrix of working out a pattern of what will happen, and of course that formula they've formulated by themselves will decide if the business is successful or not. So that data that we have and the formula that customer have is priceless. And I think first things first, the data integrity, so the security aspect, the data can never be compromised. The second thing is, the data integrity. Is a data accurate? Is a data clean? So I think a lot of organizations these days, they do have something called a data lake. Yeah. So data comes from all areas, comes from from analysts, from the business, from external external third parties. Unfortunately, the data may be missing certain items or certain elements. So the data collectively over a period of time, say several years, may be missing a few key fields or key items that makes the data incomplete. So if that's the case, then the data itself, the data lake, will not be so useful, because you've got a bunch of holes in the jigsaw where it's a data lake, and for a reliable data lake, you need the full data. Every single information needs to be covered, even the small fields, because it will be more relevant for the user in terms of the data being analyzed is actually accurate.
Yeah, now that's really interesting. So obviously you have data lake, and I'm assuming you're pulling this from different sources and then building something for your customers. So what you're saying there with regards to that is that you have, not only are you thinking about the data being compromised and people getting that data, but also is it still fit for purpose, and are we using this in the right way? How do you go about doing that? Is that something that you're kind of constantly thinking about? Because when we think about software, we think about the software, the user interface, the front end, but it appears that you're also thinking quite a lot about how do we put this data together? Is it right? Is it correct?
Yes. So I think the end goal for the business is to tailor make the data to each customer, and the past data that we have, we're able to give the customer the right decisions to make. So essentially using artificial intelligence or machine learning, some sort of model in terms of, okay, this is what will happen next, what's very likely. So the customer has got the right information at the right time and the right prediction to make, right, this is probably the best time to buy or sell the commodity in order to fit their business needs. So again, we're trying to help the customer. Of course, that journey is going to be quite a few years away. Obviously, we build a bit data lake. We need to create the right model for that data lake, and of course, the right predictive technology to be put in place, and of course, consistent right results. So again, this is very much within the financial industry where a lot of the commodities being bought and sold is actually done and analyzed by predictive technologies using machine learning. Of course, they must have already had a full data lake, full data integrity to be able to run a model and give the customers to make the right predictions of what the outcome might be. So in my area, we're still quite a while away from that. I think several years, but I think given time, I think we'll probably get the same results. We'll be able to provide the customers the right predictive technology where they can actually know when is the right time to buy and sell the commodity that they have.
And do you feel, obviously you've worked in the industry for many years and quite a customer focused role, so you're kind of delivering to customers. Do you have a real sense of kind of pride, particularly in a kind of results-based business such as kind of the financial services industry, particularly I guess you're dealing with kind of traders and companies. Do you feel a sense of pride when you see them doing well? You're kind of doing it off the basis of, my products, does that give you a buzz?
So I think one thing is most of the customers are actually sovereign wealth funds, the very, very large multinational energy companies like Shell, BP, ExxonMobil, Aramco, and of course manufacturers when they went to buy large energy and petrochemical commodities in big amounts to manufacture their products. So for me, I think what I'm helping is trying to make it a more efficient way of actually for these providers and producers of energy and petrochemicals, a way to provide a very, very unique and very efficient way to decide when to buy and procure and of course sell the commodities at the right time. As you're aware, the energy market is quite volatile.
For sure.
And of course, who would thought, 18 months ago, the airline industry would fall on his head, we're not flying.
Yeah.
And obviously, the oil price demand drops. People are not driving anywhere during the pandemic. So again, of course, I think given the situation, I don't think anyone would have predicted that.
That was a difficult one to predict. Some people probably take credit, and they said there's going to be a pandemic, but no, it was a difficult one to predict about the airline industry. And so, just on the kind of the energy side, then, do you have to now factor in things like renewables and that sort of stuff into your kind of energy prices?
Yes, so there are some renewables functionality within the platform. So I think a lot of the customers like Shell are moving into renewables. I think renewables are the next generation of energy, so to speak. And of course, a lot of governments and authorities are trying to put legislation in to make things greener. And for example, I think in London, we're expected to have only electric cars in about 2030 for one. And of course, the shipping industry, the airline industry, probably, a few decades down the road will have to follow suit. But I think we're already seeing that right now. And again, we've got something called, recycling, where some of the chemicals get recycled in a certain way more efficiently. And of course, the renewables are also, include things like wind energy. And of course, there are opportunities for new customers, for new business routes or new products. But I think people are trying to predict what they are. How do you track wind energy?
The cost of wind or something. How much wind is blowing?
Exactly. And again, so of course, if you've got a storm nearby coming, your wind farm will get excess amounts of energy generated.
Yeah.
And of course, that would obviously provide, a massive bonus to whoever's predicted that. And of course, the amount of wind generated and energy procured from that wind and access you can sell to someone else. So the energy.
It's really interesting when you think about it, isn't it? And I guess that goes back to your whole, is this data right? Because obviously maybe 3 years ago, renewables wasn't such a big thing. So you didn't have to factor that into your modeling. But now I guess it's like, right, actually, this is a big thing and government's pushing like this. So I need to now factor this in. So I guess it's really like, must be kind of interesting conversations that you have to say, how do we build this data model? I'm quite fascinated by that, really.
Yes. So I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not privy to some of the conversation, but however, I think it's very early days. For my understanding, no one's able to provide that services yet. Of course, wind energy, UK has been one of the leading wind energy providers, and of course, lots of wind farms. It's a forefront of renewable energy, for example, and again, things like, as I just said, predicting the weather systems, and setting the wind farms at the right time to collect the energy that comes from it. And of course, I think I'm also aware that certain wind farms are not supposed to operate during certain conditions. I suppose in a cyclone or hurricane. So I think you can't operate to that level. But when the opportunity comes, when wind's coming, you accumulate as much energy as you can, and then disperse it to the right producers or buyers. But again, there's another thing is, things like solar powered. I'm aware a lot of the Middle East countries, despite being massive oil producers, are also embracing solar farms. So I think countries like Emirates are one of them. So there is a focus on renewables. But of course, it's all about the economics. Things like coal, very polluting, however, very cheap. So I think it's got to be done in a phased approach, but that's probably a topic for some other time.
Yeah, no, fantastic. That's really good. And one of the things that we've talked to about a lot with people is this whole pandemic situation, which hopefully we're starting to come out of now with vaccines and that sort of thing. You've obviously worked at RELX for a number of years. I'm sure in the last 12 months, like all of us, there was a huge change in the way you worked. And I think it goes back to our kind of previous conversation about being a leader. Did you feel during that time that you had to kind of change as a leader, that you did? I guess you moved to more kind of remote working. Did it change yourself as a leader and the way you dealt with it?
So of course, like everyone else, we didn't expect to be 16 months into a pandemic and still work from home. So going back to late February and March, we were aware of what's happening in Italy. So actually, Italy was actually going through the start of the pandemic in Europe. Hasn't reached our shores quite yet. And the moment where the numbers got higher, and the week when Italy announced the first lockdown, I myself, I commute through London to get to work. I was aware that I was actually exposed to hundreds of people commuting back and forth. And of course, and being aware also that the virus was actually, you may have been positive, you may actually not show the symptoms. So I think that very week, I sent an email to the team asking, are they comfortable with some individuals like myself? They commute through the public transport and to an office. And I think some people had some reservations about that. So we decided as a team to effectively, obviously with endorsement from from my business leaders, to work from home. So we were working from home from the first week of March, when the actual lockdown that was announced by the UK government was the 23rd or 24th of March, I think. So a good 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks before. So of course, when the announcement was made that we were working from home, we had to make sure that everyone was prepared, to bring that, make sure they got a charger, they make sure they got everything they need to potentially work from home for several weeks. That several weeks did turn out to be 16 months later. We're still doing it.
Here we still are, and do you think that, again, the last 16 months has changed you as a leader? Because you've worked with these people, I guess you've got kind of the core team that you've worked with. Do you think it's changed the way you work with them, the way you kind of interact with them? Has it improved it in any way?
So I think there were several challenges. For one was we became a purely remote team, and prior to the pandemic, we probably had 1 or 2 contractors based offshore, and 95% of the team was actually based in the UK, full-time employees and contractors. and we didn't quite plan it that way, but I think we had to evolve unexpectedly, and some of it was planned. So currently right now, majority of the team are actually based offshore for a number of reasons, obviously cost base and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we had to do things differently. I mean, if I'm honest, it's not the same thing, because obviously, being in person, you can actually go on a whiteboard, write things down, explain to everyone. The session is very interactive, but I think we had to adjust. So again, new people, new adjustments, new ways of working, and of course we introduced a number of tools. So when we're planning requirements, we deploy a few new tools, plugins, where we can actually have a say and more interactive sessions, as opposed to just chatting on a Zoom call or Teams call and saying your words or typing the words. So I think there's a few tools that we use, for example, sprint planning. We use a software where we can actually start voting on requirements, how much it takes. But yeah, there's been quite a lot of adjustments. I think the biggest challenge is getting the engagement. It's definitely a bit of a challenge, I think, for me still, because some people obviously may be distracted at home, and of course it's just not the same where you can actually gauge people's reactions in real time, in face to face.
Yeah. And would that be the biggest kind of piece of advice that you would give with regards to the talent within your team, is to make sure you're almost doubling down on the engagement?
Yes. So I think the key bit is, yes, you got back-to-back Zoom calls or team calls, is to be engaged, and of course, not be too distracted. One thing I have to say, and I'm probably guilty of it, when I'm having back-to-back several Zoom or team calls through the day, I do time while on the meeting call, I do tend to type, and I'm sure.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah. Many people are guilty of that, and they take their attention off the meeting briefly or for several minutes, and I think that's when you become disengaged. I think it's knowing when to when it's your turn, what's expected of you in a meeting, and anticipating the questions that will be presented for you to ask, and I would say probably some preparation. Really, you're going to be asked something from someone about something they need, and they might have sent you an email previously, a conversation maybe had previously, a week before. Yeah. Preparing, anticipating what is expected for you for that meeting. I think that's key.
I think it's a key point, isn't it? Because when you go for a face-to-face meeting, then you have to kind of think about it, even when you're walking in the room, don't you? Like, I've got to be there at that point, and probably this is what we're going to talk about. Whereas you can have 10 meetings in a row, can't you? And if you don't really spend that time thinking about what you're saying, and you're trying to do other stuff, because you would never sit looking at your phone, would you, in a face-to-face meeting? Well,
Yes.
Some really rude people might, but generally you wouldn't, right?
No, you wouldn't. That's more engagement in the physical meeting. You're right, David.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's why I kind of like to do these sessions. I've got my laptop, but I like to do these sessions on my portal. Right, I've got one of those Facebook portal things, and that means I'm not looking at anything else. I'm just looking at the piece of paper I've got my questions and notes, making a few notes and talking to the interviewer, because I think it's really important. And I know I do it myself. You push minimize, don't you, on your Teams, and then you're just typing away and looking at your emails and doing about 3 other things. But no, it's definitely. I really think that's a very, very good point. And but as a leader, then you're setting the example, aren't you? That I'm focused, so you should focus too, because I think that's an important thing about leadership, is to set the right example. I believe.
Yes, absolutely. So as a leader, you're meant to set things by example. Like a parent or any leader position role. If you're behaving in a certain way, and it's a good example, people will follow through. If you're behaving in a negative way, then obviously if you tell them, no, you have to be like different, you can't behave like me, then you're not setting the right example. So I think people will mirror and mimic your behavior as a leader. And of course, they expect high standards, and they expect, all the positive things. And of course, most important for leader for me is, during difficult times, you're there to be able to navigate around the difficult moments for the team.
Fantastic. And just as the kind of final question, obviously, great companies you've worked with, really important kind of leadership position. What would you say was the kind of the most important thing that you've learned personally in your journey as a leader?
So you will get difficult times, challenging periods. So moments where you're under pressure, the team's under pressure, and the chips can look like they're down. Like, how do you get out of this? Things look very bleak. There not one problem. There are more problems coming up, and they're stacking up. I think the first key thing you have to be a leader is you have to be able to hold your fort, hold your position, think clearly, and prioritize what needs to be done. Essentially, it's a step mission to survive, not just for you, but for everyone else in the team, and working out a plan to get out of that position, that critical position. Does it mean putting more effort, more hours into it? Potentially, yes. Then everyone needs to do it, including the leader. If you have to sacrifice certain work that someone else asked you to do, then yes, I have to negotiate for that work sacrifice. 3, being able to engage with the leaders, senior leaders or business leaders, where certain work cannot be done, regardless of whatever optimistic view or position it can happen. Be very honest about, right, that piece of work very specifically needs to be cut back or trimmed back a little bit, because if they want a full work, they need to understand that, under whatever position, even adding a new headcount overnight or several headcounts overnight, that work can't finish. So being very honest, and I think getting that trust about, what can be delivered, what can't be delivered, and be very consistent about it. I think that's the key thing. And of course, bad times pass. So I think, at the height of the pandemic, everything seems against us. We're stuck at home. This is not doing well. Most people anyway. And of course, we thought, things are coming in the end. The economy is collapsing and whatnot, and there'll be riots. But I think bad moments will come, and they will pass. I think it's just being having clear head and steady, and being able to persevere through.
Fantastic. It sounds like you've taken a leaf out of old Gareth Southgate's book there, Aris. I think he would have said that himself. He's been through a few dark moments himself in the past, isn't he?
Yes, and I think very honestly, I think you will fail in your career several times in many aspects. You failed something, miss a project deadline, get reprimanded by your business leaders, or even getting a black mark for it. I think at the end of the day, if you look at other leaders in the past, they also had failures, but what the difference is, from their failures they learn from it, and from when they learn from their failures, they become a stronger individual, a richer person, more experienced, and they can circumvent or overcome future problems and failures and turn it to success. So I think Gareth Southgate, Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, long list of people, many difficult times they face, many failures before as well, which people forget. And of course, eventually success will come.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's really good. It's good to hear Gareth Southgate being mentioned in the light with those really, really great leaders, isn't it? I think hopefully once he's won the final on Sunday, he will be named in those levels. So I really hope that we're right in putting him up there with Churchill and Lincoln. So yeah, great stuff. Aris, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and I think it's been a really, really, really interesting just to hear how you match up the kind of the customer and the technology with the kind of the people side, which is what we get from a lot of our really great leaders. But thank you very much for today, Aris, and have a good evening. And
thank you, David. And of course, we'll watch it on Sunday, and hopefully England come and talk.
That's right. Yes, fantastic. Thank you.